Hi, this is Rich with your next 2-minute drill. I'd like to introduce you to a friend of mine. I'd like to introduce you to the boot. The short version of a very long story is I injured my foot. It was the second year in a row where I did it. I was overconfident. I tried to heal it myself instead of going to the doctor like I did the first time. It didn't work. It got worse. It got worse. And finally they had to immobilize me. So I got the boot. Instead of, except for sleeping and driving, it was me and my boot. The good news was when I was wearing the boot it didn't hurt. So my boot and I became really good friends. But the interesting thing was that I had to learn to adjust to the boot. It really wasn't the same as walking around without it. And there were some things that I had to do differently or else I really couldn't function with the boot. So what did I have to learn? There are a number of things. One, I learned very quickly I couldn't move as fast. I had to take my time, and obviously that increased travel time and getting from one point to the other. The second thing is I really had to watch where I stepped. The boot actually has a rounded bottom. I know that's a fashionable thing in some recreational sneakers right now, but based on that, and depending on how you stand, it can throw you off balance. So that was an issue I had to get used to. Another one, which I really wouldn't have predicted, was I learned I had to rely on some others. I couldn't drive. Sometimes my foot hurt so much I didn't want to take the boot off, which meant someone else had to drive, as well as some other situations I got into. But I had to learn that I had to rely on others, and I had to ask for help. I'd be willing to ask for help. And then kind of the most important one was I learned that when I was using the boot, I had to maintain concentration. I had to really concentrate about what I was doing, because if you didn't and you got yourself off balance in the wrong position, put your foot in the wrong place, and you lost that concentration, didn't think about staying in a balanced position, you could stumble and fall. And in fact, I did that twice. Thankfully, I didn't do it at a client, but I did fall twice, and it hurt. So what's the reason for this in the 2-minute drill? The reason is that it actually impacted my consulting. And I think there's some lessons for you to learn in your consulting as well. So what are those lessons? What are those things that apply to consulting that come from what I had to do to adjust to using my friend the boot? Well, the first one was I had to allow more time. And I really couldn't rush, so I didn't rush. And by not rushing around, I got to see more, I got to take in more, and I wasn't running from hither and thon the way you often can do about your work. The second thing I had to do that started to get better in my work, in addition to using my foot, was I had to plan where to step next. In the consulting business, that means that I had to know that where I was going next would work. I had to plan ahead. I had to think about it. And I didn't just step out and do it, because sometimes that would be a problem in the boot. Well, in consulting, you shouldn't do that all the time necessarily either. So I did more planning. I thought about, now if I go there, will that be better? Will I be able to make things happen? And what I found is that the longer I wore the boot, the more it actually became part of a behavior pattern in the consulting business. A third thing was I had to accept that I could not do it all. And so I did have to ask others for help. I couldn't stand in front of the room all day like I would do sometimes. And I found that by asking other people for help, I learned that number one, they would help. Number two, they actually had more contribution to make than I assumed they did. And we discovered that we all learn more together. The last thing was that whole bit about concentrating on balance and maintaining that focus so that I didn't stumble and fall. Well, that really applied in the consulting business as well. And the big thing was balance. Being balanced about my own opinions. Not assuming my opinion was always the right answer. Being balanced about analysis. Making sure we've gotten both sides of the situation and that the data wasn't lying to us. Being balanced about others' point of view. Don't discount others just because you usually do. And then being balanced about solutions. Really understanding that we've considered all the possibilities. Now, all those things that I've talked about are things that we really do in Inside Out Solutions and Consult from Strength. But I really learned that when I had my old friend the boot, I actually got better at them because I thought about it. It actually changed my personality. So I hope these little snippets will help you as you go about your consulting. This has been Rich with your 2-minute drill for today. See you next time.